Hi, I'm Jesse Cannon, and this is My Point 4 Cents.
I'm Matt Bacon.
I'm Dustin Boyer. And this week we have the owner of the EDM record label, Inspiration Music. Hey there, Alex. How's it going?
It's going all right. Glad to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you since, Andrew's too busy and successful to make it.
Of course, on vacation. Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I didn't take a vacation for the first 15 years of my career.
Yeah, what is a vacation? I actually am on vacation doing this podcast right now. So there we go.
That's how we live.
This week we'll be discussing how DIY musicians navigate distribution these days. I'm also talking to one of the most talented and unrecognized people in the music industry, Olivia Pierce. She's the creative director for Industry Plant and the focal point for the content behind all of our artist marketing. She's worked with artists like Skillet, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Walker Montgomery, and The Lone Bellow. Basically, if you want to know the people behind the music content that actually gets music heard, you're going to want to hear from her.
Then after the interview, we'll be discussing Taylor Swift again, since she revealed some really interesting marketing sauce and kind of gave away a lot of the game for artists like her. I think it's super, super interesting. And behind the paywall, which you can access through our subscriptions on Apple Music and YouTube, we're going to be discussing best practices for text on screen and Alex's content strategy for his EDM label.
So I really want to have a conversation about music distribution because I don't think I have ever heard an artist go, I work with this distribution and I'm really happy. Ultimately, it really feels like picking the best, worst options a lot of the time. And artists aren't really sure what they're getting out of their distribution. Ultimately, I tell artists to not worry too much about it, whether, the decision is whether they want to go with paying out of pocket up front or paying on the back end. But outside of that, what they're getting from these distribution companies is so far and few between that it's not worth worrying about. But I'm curious to get y'all's opinion. Alex, before we started, gave me a very strong opinion. Maybe, Alex, we just start with you and what you think.
Run a record label. Let's hear it.
I've used probably 5 different distribution services since I started the label and also with my own music. I've hated every single one of them, and I
Name them all.
Okay. Oh well,
No.
I'll think about it. I might name some of them. Right now, for my label, I need a distribution service that will allow me to upload a lot of different songs by different artists, because I sign songs on a song basis, and I don't sign artists as a whole. So that's one of the major things. The other thing is I need one that isn't going to take an exorbitant amount of royalties off of the top line that just eats into what I can reinvest back into the label. I've only found one that can do that, and the price I pay for that is support times of 20 plus days to get responses on tickets.
Holy cow.
Review times for the song being uploaded for the first time are kind of okay. Usually 3 to 5 days. But if I make a mistake, if I put the wrong songwriter name in, I have to wait a month plus to get that updated on services. So if it's a small thing like a songwriter, it's fine. But if I choose the wrong artist, then all of a sudden that artist gets to wait a month before they can get their song updated properly for a simple metadata update.
Well, and what's crazy about that is that you're talking about just customer service there, right? And service in general. And when I talk to most artists, they're trying to decide based off of like which distro can help me best get on a playlist. And I'm like, man, you should be looking at whether or not you can get a hold of somebody because the bar is so low at this point.
I literally made a video about this about 3 weeks ago that basically the conclusion was exactly what you just summed up there, which is that there's 2 big problems. That most of the distributors have signed so many artists that they're never going to help you get on an editorial playlist, and there's not enough spaces on the editorial playlist, even if they do help you a lot of the time. And then 2, you have to choose by if they have an adequate customer service department, because most of them now have no recourse if they throw you off or if anything happens at this point.
Yeah, and the issue that's like really concerning to me is, well, there's 2. The one that people are going to be up in arms about that I think is unfortunately inevitable is that a lot of these distributors are basically like putting in their terms and conditions that they can use your music to train AI models. Just putting it out there.
Should we use the language most of them? I don't think that's most of them. I think it's a few of them.
Okay. So, yeah. And then the other thing, I think, like the real thing that stresses me out when I work with artists on self-serve white label distributors is the amount of time between payouts, right? Especially if you're starting to get big. And I think we've all worked with artists who've had, decent amounts of streams and thousands of dollars sitting there, and it's just frozen.
So let me ask you though, has anybody here actually worked with a distro of any size, whether it's like DistroKid or more of a white glove service that you're like, yeah, there's something here?
I think Symphonic and United Masters have been giving much better service to the people I work with than most other distributors. It seems like both of them have positioned themselves to be like, hey, we know our competition does nothing for customer service. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually give them customer service. So that's been a lot of it. I think, when Matt's talking about the payment side, one of the most interesting moves I think United Masters did to the other ones is said, how would you like daily payments? It's a very interesting position in the market.
And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for distribution companies that are trying to do something a little different. And I think the problem that they have, and I've talked to Randall Foster at Symphonic about this a lot, is the scalability of it all. And I think that's why they're so focused on their white glove service, is because they can hone in on the artists that are doing well and not worry about signing every single artist. But even within the distro companies themselves, like DistroKid is so funny to me because I'll have conversations with artists where they're still doing white glove service. Like I have one artist who will not move from DistroKid because she knows certain people and they do really special stuff for her, and she does good numbers. She's got somewhere around 1 million monthly listeners, so DistroKid really rolls out the red carpet for her. And it's like, how, she'll go around and talk, and say great things about DistroKid, and it's like, how can you parse that? How can you navigate that? But I mean, I'm kind of touching on a few different things here, but going over on the scalability, I really wonder how any distro company can be great when that is really the problem.
I get that distribution companies have to keep their costs low to have, or the cost to artists low to get a big share of the market. But I wish there was one that did not charge a fee, who was okay charging a lot monthly or yearly for their service. Right now, I pay so little for yearly service with my distributor, and I don't know of one, and I'd be happy paying 10, 20 times more per year if I could just have better response times. But I don't know of any that do that aren't also taking 15 to 30% of my top line.
I think that's an important thing to focus on, is that the big problem you have is that most of the ones that are going to offer good customer service want a percentage, and a lot of people don't want to pay a percentage.
And this is also like one of the fundamental things about how like bigger record labels work, is like they're paying 15% to the Orchard or whatever, but also you're getting real customer service. And it's interesting, to say the least.
Well, and I'm considering doing something similar to you, Alex. I think the idea of getting better service, it's almost worth that 15 to 20%. I'm really considering like eating into that, because of the fact that that customer service then reflects on your label, right? The musicians that sign with you, they don't really care about what you are dealing with on your end. All they're seeing is you, and you go, how do I make money as a record label and help these artists when I'm giving up 15, 20% and really not getting okay customer service? And that's what's so frustrating. 15 to 20% of anything is a lot of money. For you to have to wait 20 days for something to update is just insane.
Another thing I think is really interesting is, so I went around when I was writing this distribution video, I wrote it for like 3 months. I basically was taking notes on it. And what I would say to every record label person I knew at the time is, what piece of digital marketing, like add-on the distributor has, actually does anything to move the needle? Like, if you go in the Orchard, it'll say marketing section. You can click on a bunch of things and you're going to burn the money, essentially. It's going to do jack shit. I literally said to them, like, what thing does anybody offer? And no one had a good answer for me.
And I wonder about the editorial stuff too, where you're giving up a lot of percentage to things like the Orchard. And supposedly you do get better editorial support. But anytime I've talked with someone at that kind of distributor, they haven't been able to give me any details as to what the data looks like on that. What percent chance increase do I have at actually landing something like that with you versus just on my own?
A lot of that depends on the label doing the pitching, from what I understand. Because I've seen Within major distributors, and I don't want to address any individual major distributor, I have seen that some labels are more equal than others. And that like a bigger label is significantly more likely to get that placement. Is not really just, it's the combination of that big name label with their connections plus the distributor, but also their higher priority with the distributor because their 15% is much bigger than a smaller guy. Would you say that's basically accurate, Jesse?
I think that is accurate at some of them from what I've heard, and then others is a lot of the personal relationship. Like it's like a funny thing of like,
Yeah.
we're in such a bad place that like literally what I have to say to some of my clients is I'm like, they're like, should I go with United Masters or this one? I'm like, well, if you go with United Masters, where I just came from is someone who works at United Masters wedding. I got back this morning. If something really goes wrong, they don't answer you, I can yell at them. And I hate that that's where we're at because they should be able to go to the place in the market they want to go to. But where we're at is every corporation, we've talked about this on other subjects, is every corporation has decided, fuck customer service. I get the client and they're used to slop and used to shit and they're going to eat it.
Dude, coming back from vacation, that's how it feels like just in general in the marketplace. Like these vacation location like places expect you to just spend an insane amount of money and look at what you're spending and they'll just give you whatever. And they're like, you're on vacation, that you get what you get. And it's just this wild place. And I think musicians probably get it worse than anybody because they're so underserviced because it's like, oh, well, you know what? You have to live on your dream. Like you have to pursue it. It's going to suck for a while. Therefore, my service can suck. It's really frustrating for these artists because I think, you're just waiting for this one service to come out and just give halfway decent customer service and just dominate everything. And I'm just surprised it doesn't exist yet.
I find it super interesting to check out my distributors' social media pages because they're posting a lot of, stuff about the services they're providing and the upgrades that they've got in the pipeline, which not only do all of the upgrades not work at all, but the stuff that they're like hyping up has all been kind of garbage. But all of the comments are just people complaining about the customer support. Like you'll go in there and see people saying like, my release UPC this has been in the queue for 6 weeks and was supposed to release like 2 weeks ago. And I'm not going to lie, I have found myself in the comments also leaving that type of comment. And sometimes it feels like they do respond after that. But it is like horrendous. They're just getting pounded every single post with people complaining about how bad they are.
The upgrades thing is actually really funny. Like the way the fact that you phrased it that way, because yeah, I feel like every distributor person I'm talking to is constantly telling me about some exciting new add-on. But like the problem is like fundamentally like the same problem Spotify has, which is like once you deliver a product appropriately, like you can not extract more money from that person. And so you have to figure out other ways to extract money from that person beyond like the subscription fee that you're paying via Spotify, via DistroKid, whatever. And so that's where these add-ons come in, even if they're not real, or if they just took away a feature that used to be part of the base tier is now just a paid feature.
Yeah, Cory Doctorow, the science fiction author, made that term in Shitification, how like every product update just makes everything fucking worse, turn more to shit. And like I really feel we're living in it. Like you just see it everywhere, even if you're like not an anti-capitalist, socialist weirdo like me, that it's just like you see that these companies are just like, okay, you've become a customer. Odds are you're not leaving. Even if I basically take a shit on your front doorstep and insult your wife, you're going to basically Ted Cruz it, and you're just going to say, could I have some more?
Shout out Ted Cruz. Very much not a friend of the show.
That very much not a friend of the show. The opposite of Nina Geraci, Ted Cruz.
Exactly.
Well, I often wonder, I think about this a lot when people pitch the Spotify alternative. Like there's, especially living in Nashville, there's always some dude who used to be a musician who's like, dude, I've got an idea for a new DSP that's like artist friendly and it's just going to dominate. Dude, I hear that like once a month. If you go out in Nashville, there's always a guy.
Literally like once every other month at least.
Yeah, and you want to tell these guys that their idea is better than Spotify. That's not the problem. The problem is that dominating a market and people growing accustomed to that product, even if it's shitty, in their day-to-day life, that's hard to overcome. And I think people, as much as they're annoyed with DistroKid, if you come out of the woodworks and you're like, hey, this is better, you're going to have to overcome the fact that they're just comfortable with DistroKid, even if it is better.
Well, this is like what I always talk about with my business development clients, right? Is like you're always looking at like calcified relationships, and breaking up the calcified relationships is impossible. And like the thing is, right, because it's we
Matt,
talked
you
about
should
this before.
define calcified relationships. Like, I get it, but like the audience might not get it.
Okay. So basically a calcified relationship is this idea that this relationship started and then it gets hardened just by time. Just because it's been that way for a long time, you're not going to break away.
To piggyback on you, I uploaded through CD Baby. They put a 10% fee on my thing, but my problem is now I don't want to take away my catalog. It's going to take 2 hours to get all the ISRCs. I'm going to do this. It's going to be annoying. I'm going to change over royalties. I have to learn a new login, learn a new upload.
And that's what they're banking on, because they realize that even if, and I've seen it happen where people have just been like, fuck DistroKid, but they don't want to put the time in to move 60 songs from DistroKid to another thing. So they just start with their new material on the other thing. And that's just where we're at.
Oh, and you have to incentivize them to do that. I mean, we've talked to artists and they're like, I would love to move my whole catalog, but that's such a pain in the ass. So that distro needs to like give them money, not because it's worth that, just because of the time investment it takes to fucking move everything. I have an old mentor of mine, and half of his business, he got really good at moving catalogs over. He just is hired to move catalogs because it's such a pain in the ass. And I'm like, I got a guy you could just pay to do that. And I'm like, man, that is the real money. All the boring stuff like that, I think artists will pay for.
I mean, it's really funny. Like, I made a lot of money over the years, and I haven't done it in a while, but like what I was doing to make a lot of money years ago is when artists would basically become inactive, I would get hired to take their inactive catalog and extract as much profit from it as possible, do a checklist of all the things they did. But the funniest thing I think about with this stuff and when I've been talking to people is this is going to be the thing AI gets good at very fast. We're going to basically see AI tools come out to move your catalog. Then they're going to fuck it up a lot because they're going to get trained on it and they're going to make mistakes. Then they're going to actually get good at it, and it'll be a thing that this is no longer a thing, and people will be able to switch really fast with a click of a button.
That would be a game changer, because right now I'm not even open to trying new distributors, because every time I do, even if they've got a great pitch and they can fix the things that I'm currently having issues with, I move some songs and then I find a completely different problem that I didn't even know could exist.
Yep. 100%.
My main issue at the beginning was my distributor didn't show daily statistics updates. So if I was doing promotion, I had to check Spotify for artists, or I couldn't see if things were moving the needle. And I still can't, on a daily basis, see how the entire catalog is moving if I run some promotion. And so I switched distributors to this distributor who does have great data visualization. And all of a sudden I realized they don't provide exports of sales data that I can upload to my accounting software and pay my artists. So all of a sudden I've got all of the sales data on the website, and I have to go in and manually enter like the small lines, like the 0.00012 cents thing, individually into my accounting software because they don't provide me with something that I can upload. And that was like, I'm done trying new distributors. I'll stick with what I've got for now.
Are you doing all the accounting on your own?
Yes, all through Eddie, the accounting software.
Well, I was just kind of curious. Have you considered moving to one of these platforms that, I mean, Symphonic does it, where it pays out the artist directly and does all the accounting for you?
Somewhat. I've seen some that are way more automated. The main reason why I'm not exploring anything new right now is just because doing the accounting isn't like the thing that's holding me back from growing. So I'm just saying it doesn't take that much of my time. It's that thing of like, what else is going to fall through if I move everything? Exactly. Yeah. I had a guy who approached me and said, like, we will do every single bit of moving your current accounting to our new accounting software that has these things that I did want. They said they would handle the entire thing, take the risk on, and I was like, it sounds great, and maybe in like 2 years I can have someone I hire do that with you, but I just don't want to deal with it. Let me make social media posts and run ads.
To back up what you were saying though, it really is crazy how many distributors, even when they say we have day-to-day results, don't. And I was, talking to a friend of mine, and they're like, using Music Stacks is a premium feature because then they could at least see their popularity score. And if like they're doing a promotion, they want to see if it actually moves the popularity score to get more into the algorithm. They were trying to use that as an alternative, but it is crazy to me how often, like, you know, even some of the paid analytic services that you hit the refresh data and nothing happens.
So I'm super excited for this interview. Olivia and I have been working together for quite a while. And in
Yes.
transparency, we currently work together at the same company as business partners. And so this interview feels a little self-serving because I'm talking to somebody who is honestly at the forefront of the success of our company currently. But I think that as musicians, artists, music industry people, you should be hearing from people like Olivia more often. So let me introduce you and who she is and who she's worked with. This is Olivia Pierce. She is the creative director at Industry Plant, the company that both of us work at. And she is our our social media, our creative director, she is everything when it comes to creative and social media and content.
True.
A few of the people that I want to mention that you've worked with that I think are fantastic: Bootsy Collins, The Lone Bellow, Walker Montgomery, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Skillet, Kimberly Perry, 1,000 Horses, and Runaway June, just to name a few fantastic artists that you work with. Some of them current.
Mhm.
Just to give you everybody a little bit of history too, that Olivia and I have been working together for, I want to say, 5 years now.
Since the
First
dawn of
as
time.
a client, yeah, since
Yeah.
the dawn of time, that 2020 when COVID started. And what's interesting about Olivia is that she came to my previous company to hire us, and she learned so much from us so quickly. She bypassed us and started doing it on her own. And we worked together for probably like 3-6 months, or actually a year. I think we worked
I think a
together.
year. Yeah, and y'all taught me so well because Dustin is such a great teacher. And then also his prodigy, Jamie, who is now like a big star in the music marketing world. They really were able to teach me everything that I needed to know about specifically TikTok and short form content because I was an Instagram girly for so long. I had a fashion blog. I loved pictures, and the concept of making videos like blew my mind, and I just couldn't understand it. And I actually didn't download TikTok for the longest time because I was so against it. And then I worked with Dustin and Janie, and they were like,
I
"No, you
remember
have
having that
to."
conversation where you were like, "I don't want to download it." And we're like, "You don't
Yeah.
have a choice." Like,
Yeah.
which is so funny because now you're telling me similar things. You're like, "What are you
I
doing if you're
know.
not doing this?" So Olivia and I, we split ways. She went and did her own thing. And then I saw she was offering like her own marketing services. And I looked at the work you were doing, Olivia, and it was so brilliant that I went to my business partners at the time, and I was like, we have to hire her. Like, she's absolutely brilliant.
So sweet.
We hired her over at the company we were at. We worked together for 3-4 years. You became the senior member over there. And her and I got so into the weeds with content in a way that other company just couldn't handle, I want to say, that we said, you know what, we're going to split ways. I wanted her to be my partner in this endeavor. And yeah, and so we started Industry Plant 3-4 months ago. It's been going extremely well. But Olivia and her team are currently the backbone of our company. And I think what excites me about this interview, again, I'll say, is that, so much of the industry from top to bottom, they're either like in the weeds in so many things, they don't really pay attention at the level that you do, or they're young artists and they can't see the forest through the trees. And I think what makes your position unique is that you're not just working with 1 or 2 artists. You're working with a dozen artists at any given time. So you see these trends and these things that I don't think either large companies can look at the macro level that you can, or small artists can. So all that to say, I've kind of sucked the air out of the room introducing you. So I just want to talk to you and first, did I miss anything? I kind of introed you and hopefully covered everything, but how would you describe what you do? I guess is the first question I have for you.
Yes, I am the creative director and head of social media at Industry Plant. Been doing this for so many years. I started doing social media professionally when I was like 15, so like 11 years ago. And I've loved learning about social media. I think my love for it is always the visual artistic side of things. So it was really nice when I was able to fully dive into that with you over the last year, creating an artist branding service and diving into how to really brand an artist in a visual way that's impactful across social platforms. That branding in general has always been like my dream career role. So getting to just kind of force myself to be in a position as a brand expert was a dream come true. And Dustin, you really helped create a lot of what we do now with the branding that we do for artists. So I don't ever want to forget that that is really where all of the social strategy, all of the ideas, everything starts from, is our like deep dive into an artist's brand, not only visually, like artistically, but also who they are as an artist, how they want to portray themselves online, and how do we get the brand to be successful through the noise of social media as well. So there's a lot of parts to what I do, but I think it all starts there.
Well, what I find interesting about your position and other people in your position is that if we jumped into the 90s or earlier, or even 15 years ago in 2010, your job would either be marketing or it would be creative direction for like a music video. And those things were very separated.
Mm-hmm.
But now as a creative director, you have to have these like marketing jobs at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, which is so bizarre and new that I think that that's why people like you are so unique, because you're starting to figure out how to do both. I mean, would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think honestly, marketing has become so visual and so artistic recently, but that's really the biggest change is now like marketing people need to know how to direct a music video and like how to create these high level visual strategies that weren't really open before. But I think that's really exciting and that's what I really enjoy is the high level visual stuff. So I think we talked the other week. I was like, what if I did direct a music video? What about that,
I mean,
Dustin?
well, and
And I don't
I,
like it's too much. Like I love working with very talented directors, but I'd love to be able to oversee large scale projects like that. And I think having the marketing intertwine with the creative department of like a bigger artist, for example, Sabrina Carpenter, she's a genius and her team is genius at rolling out these music videos that are also tied into the marketing and the promotion of future songs and the lore and the backstory. So I think if all the teams are able to work together in this really cohesive way, it becomes beautiful. But since we're a small team and we work with smaller artists, we kind of do have to be hands-on in everything. And in order to get similar results to what a Sabrina Carpenter is able to put out, we need to be able to kind of conceive of everything from a top level. So I think that's the difference is like we kind of have to have all hats because we're smaller and we work with smaller artists. But when you get to bigger teams, you can be more specialized. But I like being a jack of all trades. I always have been. I just want to do everything.
well, and I think a lot of artists I talk to always have this question of like, they see what Sabrina Carpenter's doing, these large artists, and they're like, I don't need that level of depth when it comes to branding and like visuals and things like that. And to a degree, they're right. But I think what we've been finding out is that starting extremely early in the artist's career, getting the brand right does make an impact, you know, early on.
It's kind of the difference between an artist that can get to that level versus an artist that has like a blip and fizzles out because the brand really does become the thing the fans latch on to early and are just like hammering everyone over the head. Like the super fans that just go out onto the street and tell all their friends and tell everyone forever, you got to check out this artist. It's usually not just because the music is good. It's usually because they've built a world that the fans can live in and die in and breathe every day. So that's really what we try to do on micro levels, macro levels, whatever we can, but to create that world for fans to live in.
Yeah, and would you say that you need a huge budget in order to do that?
No, I think it's big ideas, not big budgets. And I love working with artists that really know themselves and know what they want their fans to experience and who they are to their fans and can see, like, have that vision for the connection, because it's like I can make up a vision for an artist and it can be good and it can carry them. But it's so much stronger, I feel, if an artist is the catalyst for it, even if they don't like know it fully, they just kind of have a gut feeling of who they are in the world and like what their message is, what their voice is, who they want to be to their fans. We can take that, even if it's a small nugget, and like run with it and create something really tangible that the artist will live and breathe forever. We had some conversations about the band Ghost, and I think they're an incredible example of this. And another band we love is Sleep Token. They've just created such an insane brand, and it's kind of like the highest form of this, right? Where they've created such an intense world of lore around their bands. It's fabricated, it's fictional, but not everyone's has to be. It's just a really good example of like the farthest you can take it, of creating lore and a world, a fictional universe for your fans to live in and to cosplay and to participate in. It just gets people so excited if they're able to really be part of your story. And it's like cool to find ways that small artists can let fans be part of their story in little ways. But it's also really fun to find these huge, insane ideas that fans can participate in too, like becoming part of a church or religion, for example, with Sleep Token and Ghost.
Ghost has, what do they call it? Not the cult.
The
or is it
clergy.
cult?
So the clergy is like the people speaking for the band. So like that's part of the church. So it's all an allegory. Specifically, Ghost's structure is very interesting. I encourage everyone to research it because it's just like a genius concept for a band. When they post, they'll say message from the clergy in all caps, and then the caption happens. So I think that's like another example of world building and where like branding seeps into social media so clearly in that example. They're like part of the church and they've created this church for their audience. So the clergy is going to speak to their audience for them. I think that's just genius.
So let's say I am a singer-songwriter or a country artist, just a guy with a hat, and I'm listening to this and I'm like, that's cool and all for Ghost, but none of this branding stuff really applies to me because I'm not going to go that deep. I'm not going to have a clergy. What would you say to them who don't really feel like they need to think at that level?
That's so fair. And I think the biggest thing about branding is authenticity. We want to start with who you are, how you see yourself as an artist. We would never create a brand that's too fabricated or too big. We want to start with the person and the artist behind it all. So if a guy is like, oh, I like ranching, then we might try to build some things around that concept. Maybe we have horns as a motif. We have cowhide rugs in the location. We put them in a barn setting. We try to surround them with more rustic motifs and symbols. They could say howdy for the beginning of all their posts. Like that's a very cheesy example, but it is like an example of how like a country brand can still be part of a brand. I think some country brands I really like would be Caitlin Butts has done a great job doing like a tongue-in-cheek Western fun brand while still being a country artist. Like there are different ways to take it. Maggie Antone's a great one. I like things that are left of center, so that's what I'm going to gravitate towards, is anyone that's got a little wink and a nod to them. But Colter Wall's one of my favorite artists of all time, and he's incredibly like no social media. I'm just a guy and I just want to ranch and I'm the real deal. And I like that about him too. He's created his own mystique and he is literally posting that he's just on a ranch learning how to rope cows because that's really who he is and what he wants to be doing. So that's kind of maybe a similar way to think about it. that's a brand of his that he's created a lot of mystique and power around just by being himself and kind of being this curmudgeon-y, like 20-year-old who is like an old man rancher at heart, and that's his larger than life persona. But it's natural to him. I think you have to start with whatever's natural for you. If you want to be a larger than life artist, then we go that way. If you just want to be some guy talking to his phone, we go that way. If you want to be a guy that's never talking to his phone, that's much harder. But if you're willing to put in like 10 years to make that work, then we can go that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of country artists do the not talking to the phone by having a camera follow them, sort of like a reality television show. Gavin
That's a
Adcock
good
is one,
point.
although he does talk to the
No,
camera.
he's
He's got
very
these,
much on the social media level. Like he is
yeah,
posting whatever. He's kind of shit posty. He'll just say what he says. So I'd say, yeah, he's larger than life because of his tour recaps and his insane personality. But he's very much like close to his audience. And I think that's something that we talk about is like the distance between the artist and the audience and what that looks like and how we can work with that. Because if an artist wants to be very separate from the audience, it's harder to build that relationship and trust, but you still can. And there are still ways around that. Like you said, having cameras following you, you don't have to engage with them, but we're still being led into the world somehow. Or just posting great content where you look larger than life, or live videos where people are like, wow, I want to go see that artist. That's a way to get through that distance while still having it. But then an artist that's like, I'm gonna post whatever at like midnight and I can look like hell and I can say crazy stuff, that works too. It's just a different strategy, but they all work. Some work faster, I will say, especially on the internet, but some are not as long lasting. Like I don't have a lot of confidence that the Gavin Adcock thing goes all the way. I feel like it's very flash in the pan personally. And it's like, I don't know how long he can be that guy. I don't know how long he can keep that up and build like a long lasting career off of this crazy spectacle.
Well, and maybe that's just where he's at right now. Maybe he builds into a maturity era, if you will, right? Where he moves on into something else. But, that spectacle and drama seems to be garnering a lot of attention. Even when Charlie Kirk died, he made a big show of support there, which, got him onto TV and news and so feeding into the beast that is like cultural stuff. So one thing I failed to mention is that Olivia is actually an artist as well, and it's sort of her secret identity. And I won't reveal who she is as an artist. Weirdly, people can't figure it out, and I don't know why.
I don't want them to. Please stop.
She's
No.
but I
No
did
one
want
know.
see, I think though that it is your superpower. And it used to be mine. I used to be an artist, but the further I get away from it being an active artist, the harder it is for me to relate. And we work with so many career professionals in the music industry who were never artists that artists can smell it from a mile away. And when you talk to artists, even if you don't tell them, I think they know because you understand and implement the things that you do with your artists with yourself. So you understand where the lines are. But tell me more about that. Like, do you find it to be, how it changing the way that you think about your approach when you talk to artists?
Oh my gosh. I have learned so much from having to struggle it out in the weeds as an artist myself. Everything that I say is stuff that I do, something I would do, something I know how hard it is to do. So all of this is very tried and true. None of it is like, I think you should do this. All of it is like, I know you should do this because this is what I've had to do and this is what everyone has to do and it sucks, but please trust me. And yeah, so I will like hear something you say in a conversation, try it out myself, learn from that, or something that I've tried a million times to try to get right. I finally figure out and crack a code, and then I can relay that to my artists and my clients in a really like scientific way because it is a theory I had. I've trusted it out. I've seen that it's true. So that's something. And then I'm also experimenting all the time on the internet. I know when, the algorithm changes. I know when the things change because I'm always doing it myself. So I see the new trends. I see what's working for my artist friends and for everyone else who's an up and coming rising artist with me. I'm always in there trying to experiment and figure stuff out in real time. So it's very highly educational. It's also very difficult to balance. I feel like I mostly pour myself into my work and I really just let my artist project I'll get to it whenever. And that's how it should be, but it is difficult to do both at the same level. So I kind of have let work take over, but I'm proud of what I do and I love it every day. So I wouldn't change that at all. But yeah, a lot of my ideas come from like 3 a.m. because I'm so burnt out. I don't have any new ideas for me. And then I'll just think of something randomly and then that will work. And I'll tell my clients to do it too.
So you use your own artistry as a testing ground to
For sure.
proof on things before pitching it to the artist,
A lot
which
of
is clever.
times. Yeah, it's how I learn what to do on socials because I'm in there with y'all and it's really hard. It's really hard right now. And I know it's easier to be like an independent artist than ever, and it's easier to get heard than ever. But because everyone's doing it, it's also much harder in a way. So it's really difficult to fight through the noise. It's really hard to fight these algorithms. And you can feel like you're failing every day. And that's why I try not to let my artists get caught up in the daily numbers and look at overall trends and like engagement quality and the connection you're making with fans, because that's what's actually going to make your career work in the long term. It won't be the like viral moment you had. It will be the continuous posts you're doing every day, whether they get seen by 200 people or 2,000 or 200,000 or 2 million. It doesn't matter. It just matters that you're posting. It matters that it's true to you, that it's authentic, that your messaging is on point, that you're making connections with people. I know how hard it is to film every week. I have a lot of issues getting myself to film every week, but I've blocked off my entire Saturdays every week to just make stupid TikToks. And I go, I know these won't do well, and I know I'm going to hate it, and I just have to do it. So I understand when people are like, ugh, she's going to ask me to make another TikTok. I know that feeling. I know that it's difficult, but I also know that it's not that difficult. And I kind of kick people's butts a little sometimes because I'm like, sit down and make an iPhone TikTok. Like, it is not rocket science, but a lot of it is a mental block, honestly. Like, I have a lot of mental blocks to making content. I get very frustrated if things don't do well. So I have learned how to help people work through those emotions because I experienced them myself. And it can be very devastating when things don't go your way. But I've seen that no matter what the numbers say, I have a better success overall as an artist if I'm just consistent than if I have like a big video and then I go away for a while. That is like death to your career. Do not do that. And I do that a lot because I just get very frustrated and I just get depressed and I stop making content. That will hurt you more than like having some videos that don't do well. You need to fight through those videos that don't do well. You need to stay consistent, stay true to it, because over time you start to see such a much better outcome from like posting lots of videos that don't do well than like a few videos that do amazing.
Yeah. And so would you say, I was going to ask you what you think the biggest mistake as an artist to other artists that artists are making. It sounds like that lack of consistency is the answer to that question.
It's getting in your own way. And I did that a lot this year. I got in my own way. I was like, I'm not going to make content unless it's beautiful or unless it's high
Yeah.
quality or unless it's amazing or the best idea I've ever had. No,
I'm stuck with that right now. Like where
it's the hardest
I've
thing.
I'm barely posting because I mean we work in this beautiful white void and it's sort of depressing to just sit
Yeah.
in front of, and I've got things. We have things. We haven't put them up yet. It's a new
We're
office.
busy. We're killing
Yeah.
ourselves.
And so it's this idea of like but it's really just an excuse because like my most viral video this year was me talking as I opened the front door to my house, right? And that got 7 million views. And so, so many artists get hung up the same way we get hung up. It doesn't matter because it could go
doesn't.
crazy viral no matter what.
Yeah, I do want things to look good, but not to the point where you don't put anything out. I think it's a balance that I'm always trying to dance and that I try to convey to my clients. It's like, yes, it should be on brand. Yes, it should look good. Yes, it should promote your music, but not to the expense that you're not posting. So just get through the rut, get through whatever mental issue you're dealing with, push through that, and then like maybe try to make some stuff that looks better, that is more focused on the music. But as long as people are consistent and enjoying what they're posting, that's the number one thing. I'm not making the best content. I'm not. I'm making good content, but I know that it's what I can do consistently for a long time. It's sustainable and I enjoy it. And those things are far more important than making the best content you possibly can. Because I think this is what I was trying to say before is like, if you have 3 masterpiece videos, you're not going to have as much success as 20 really crappy videos. It just is a
Mhm.
numbers game, and you have to have that consistency. So what we're able to do is both, because we're really good at it by now as a company, is creating consistency and high art. That's like the dream. But if you can't do both, choose consistency because it is so much going to help you so much better.
And the biggest thing I hear from artists right now is well, of course, if I could afford to hire you guys, and transparently, a team like ours, any team you hire to do the level of work that we're doing, it's going to cost you a lot of money because you're paying salaries. But if you need to do it yourself, I hear, well, it's easy because you guys, if I could pay you, then I get it done. So they create this barrier that, well, I can't do it without a team, therefore I won't do it. What do you say to that artist that is struggling to even just get started because of those things?
Oh man, I feel for you. Um, I think a lot of looking at what you're saying and understanding where you're holding yourself back is important. Looking at where you're getting in your own way, and you have to have an ego death to post on the internet. You know this, Dustin. You have to die to yourself. You cannot care what people think about you, care what they say about your music, really care what it looks like if you don't have a budget. You need to just start creating. And my biggest key is to find what's fun for you, what's enjoyable for you, because then you're going to do it a lot more and it will become easier and it will become repeatable and something you look forward to. So if you hate filming in public, yeah, it might go viral, but I don't want to push you to film in public because you're going to do it one time, you're going to hate it, you're going to never do it again. That's going to stop you more than doing like 100 videos in your room because one of those could hit. You just don't know. It's a lot of like the right messaging, the right text on screen, the right like song. Dustin and I talk about this all the time. We can have the best ideas in the world, but it really comes down to the song at the end of the day. And if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, it doesn't sometimes. I think the more chances you give a song, the more chance you're gonna have a hit, but you have to be willing to post the same song for like a year. And I've had many songs that I've posted for a year, and at that year mark, it goes viral, and it's my biggest hit. But it took me like a year of being really depressed that my song wasn't doing well. So you have to be willing to put in that like constant, just like faith, blind faith and hope. And like, it's so brutal. It's so dire.
I think
But
that's
you
why
just
artists
have
love
to
you so
stick in
much
there.
because you'll be talking to them and the artist is like, this is really brutal. I really hate doing this. And I think most
Like, you're
people in the
right.
industry would be like, well, buck up. This is what it is.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, I know it
Yeah,
sucks.
dude. It's the
Like,
trenches.
you know?
Yeah. It's the worst, but also all you have to do is pull out your phone and go, for like 5 seconds, and you could be an overnight sensation. So, like, you have to be so delulu. You have to just, like, take a deep breath and go, I don't care at all what happens. This is fun. I'm gonna post this because I like it, because I like my song, whatever. And just have a whatever mentality every day. If you enjoy it, wonderful. If you think it's beautiful, wonderful. But a lot of times you just have to go, well, I guess I'm going to post this. But I will say the more established you get, the more you can start to kind of gatekeep what you post and figure out what is going to present your brand in the best way. So it's all very complicated. I have very different advice for very different types of artists, but if you are a baby artist and you're trying to get your start, I would worry less about what it looks like and the high production of it and the budget. And I would worry more about how can this be sustainable? How can I make an actual business out of this? Because I've actually created a business out of my music. It is profitable. It is sustainable. I put in what I get out and I get out what I put in. So it's like something I'm able to do long term because of that. So I think that's kind of the best way to think about it when you're starting out. Don't try to do the biggest music video you can. Don't try to stretch your money to get like the best visuals. Just start small. And then as you create money, connections, touring, you can do bigger and bigger things. But it takes so many years that I just caution anyone in blowing it all in the first 2, because you're gonna need to put in 10 and then 10 more and then 10 more a lot of times. So just try to do it as long as you can in a sustainable way, and you will, I think, have more success that way in the long term.
I think that what's interesting is a lot of artists will approach this, and like you said, they'll kind of want this immediate whatever. But this idea of it takes years and years and years, I mean, it's the same way for any business, right? Because you're not
Yeah.
only getting out there and communicating with people that you exist over and over again, you're also learning things. And so, to your point about being consistent and posting whatever you can, what happens, and you're a great example of this, is you start to learn things and you start to push it creatively. And I think that's where artists become like truly sustainable and consistent, is when they go, oh, there's an artistic avenue here where I can make this content interesting and
hmm
something that I enjoy making versus something I have to do.
Absolutely. And we talk about branding a lot as a playground and a guideline. And I think if you can figure out your brand, if you know your brand, you have a bigger playground to work within, because you're like, okay, I could do a photo carousel about this. For example, if your brand is like fairies and fairy core, you're like, okay, the new moon is coming up. I can make a carousel around my song about like fairies for the moon or something, or like what to do when the moon is full. I can make like a video of nature that's like magical with a hook that's like this feeling, LOL. I don't know, I'm just making it up on the spot. But it's like, this song makes me feel like playing fairies again. You can work more things in that aren't just you singing your song. And I think that's when things become a lot more interesting for fans, especially. If you're a country artist who has a very straightforward brand, okay, you are from Virginia, you grew up on a farm, you grew up playing music, then make content about that. Make content around farming and make content around what you wear, what's like real country. What, like, you could critique other people's country outfits, be like, this isn't the right kind of boots, like this isn't the right saddle, whatever you want to do. But you could do more types of content than just here's my song, go stream my song, listen to my song again. It becomes more fun. Like for me, I love style and fashion. I enjoy making fashion videos. I get the most excited out of those. Sometimes that's what does the best out of the week, out of all the content I've made. And great, it's building my brand. It's building other niches and interests for people to find me and to find community with me. It's something else for fans to dig into, of like, oh my God, I love her music, but I love her style. And it just kind of creates another touch point for people.
If you're enjoying this interview, there's about 30 more minutes of it. And if you become a paid member, you can listen to the rest of it. So if you really want to get into what makes a piece of content work on social media, I suggest you go and sign up.
So, guys, you know what the internet was really asking for after our discussion of Taylor Swift last week? More
white men's opinion of Taylor Swift.
Yes, that's what they.
Oh, we've got
the
plenty
internet,
of opinions.
the internet is saying they called a bunch of married men incels. It's really good stuff because we discussed Marketing, yeah. Anyway, we're going to discuss Taylor Swift some more. So she went on Zane Lowe to promote this record. Many people said, what we were discussing last week is, did she even market this record? I thought that was a little silly, but she did a lot of mainstream press this week. And we all know no mainstream press tour is complete without a visit to see Mr. Lowe. And let's hear what she said, because I think she gave some very interesting sauce here.
How do you choose to process? The math is one thing, and that just goes on around us in life now. But then the real human interaction is what I know that you really still tap into. And when you have an album that's this big with so many people pouring their energy and being so invested in it, how do you absorb all of that in the days that follow? Because we're talking for real a few days after the album came out.
Yeah, I mean, I welcome the chaos. The rule of show business is, if it's the first week of my album release and you are saying either my name or my album title, you're helping. And art, I have a lot of respect for people's subjective opinions on art. I'm not the art police. It's like everybody is allowed to feel exactly how they want. And what our goal is as entertainers is to be a mirror. Oftentimes an album is a really, really wild way to look at yourself, right? What you're going through in your life is going to affect whether you relate to the music that I'm putting out at any given moment. And what I often love seeing my fans say is, I used to be someone who didn't relate to Reputation, and now that I've been through some other things in my life, that's my favorite album. Or I used to be a fearless girly, now I'm obsessed with Evermore. And we're doing this thing for keeps. I have such an eye on legacy when I'm making my music. I know what I made. I know I adore it. And I know that on the theme of what the showgirl is, all of this is part of it.
You know what's funny about this is I watched this, and because I saw people's reaction to it, and so many people were like, look how angry she is. You can tell that she's pissed off at the reaction. And I watched it and I was like, this is the record that she's talking about. What she said at the end there, this is the whole point of it. And it really leans into what we talked about last week, where it is about her marketing is her ability to create cultural relevancy, and she's very aware of it. She said it at the beginning. People are talking about me. I did my job. That was the job. It wasn't to do a bunch of these press things. It was to get people talking about me, good or bad or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's people at that level, regardless of how good the record actually is, there's always going to be a large amount of haters, right? Okay, fine. I feel like she just gave a relatively standard reply to how the hater thing works. And yeah, it's are you getting people talking? But I think the other piece in there that was kind of interesting was this idea that how she views the catalog as something your relationship with evolves, and how it's a mirror to yourself, which I think is true for all of our favorite artists. I think everyone has an artist they love with a big catalog, and your relationships change over time.
Well, it's a certain type of artist that does that, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the beauty of following an artist for a long time. And I think she's entering this deep legacy phase where there's people who grew up listening to her who now have children who listen to her, which is weird, but it's where we're at.
As a person who's been a fan of Taylor Swift since the Teardrops on My Guitar days, I do really enjoy the album.
Wow.
He's holding the album,
we
by
really
the
got
way.
the right guy to come on this week and save us, guys.
You mentioned earlier the song Wood being horrible. I must say, I hum it to myself when I fall asleep at night. It is so catchy. I cannot stop listening to it, despite the interesting lyrics, which I don't tend to mind. When the album first came out, I was pretty worried because everything on my social media feed said how much people hated it. I just said not interested in a couple of those posts, and all of a sudden, every single thing on my feed was about how much people loved it. And I have found myself to be much happier with my newly curated feed of good echo chambery opinions on the album.
Man, that's what we talked about last week, was that it was really hard to know the real opinions of this because, one, we don't have the data yet. We can't see what it looks like 60 days from now. And then two, we're always in bubbles. And I think that even if you love this album, there are many people who do and still love to see the opinions and their critiques. They're interesting, the feedback. You know, it is funny not knowing that you love that song, and right at the beginning, I shared an opinion about it. It was me, by the way. I'm the one who said I didn't like that song, and by the way, I stand on that. I don't think it's a very good song. Jesse agrees. But what's interesting is that I said it with the confidence of thinking that everybody that I was talking to felt the same way, and it really is like what she said about art and how it's different for everybody and different perspectives. I did have another thought though, because we talked about this lack of marketing last week. And what we're really talking about is how quickly, and all the artists do it. And I would say that she actually gave more time between her announcement and the record release than most major artists do right now. And it sort of occurred to me that yes, she wants people to talk about the record in week one, and she wants it to be as positive as possible, right? But I realized that the real way that you mitigate hate is reduce anticipation. That you can market your brand and create excitement about what you're doing next without creating anticipation for one particular product. Because the bigger the anticipation, Alex, no matter how you feel about Taylor going into that record, if she had been building this record up for 6 months, your expectations would be sky high. And you might feel completely different about that record because you've been waiting 6 months for it, you know, and that defines what people say about it in the first week. So I think in some ways when people say, well, you know, she didn't do a lot leading up to it, it's probably by design for just that purpose.
Well, and it's also what we talked about last week, right? Is that going into this cycle, she's coming off like one of the highest highs like anyone's ever had.
Whoa. That's not totally true. That last album also people said was a disappointment.
No, but I meant the Eras tour.
The Eras tour was huge, but the album...
No, I'm not talking about the album. I'm talking about...
Like, we were definitely at a thing where the fans, depending which one of you ask, the majority would say she's either now on her third disappointing album or second disappointing album.
Yeah, and that's also true. But what I'm saying is that the previous couple records, Evermore, Modern Tortured Poets Department, like...
Tortured
those obviously
Listeners
didn't get...
Department in my case.
I called it the Dead Poets Society next week. My wife listened to it and got
so those
very
records didn't get as much
me.
critical acclaim. Those records didn't get as much critical acclaim. I heard it, you heard it, everybody heard it. But really what I was trying to say is that the Eras tour felt like this sort of like giant career capstone moment. And so it's like you can't go higher than like one, if not the biggest arena tour of all time, one of the biggest arena tours of all time.
But by many measures, we could say it is the biggest arena tour in the history of arena tours.
And so what I'm trying to say is like any promotion you do after that is almost counterproductive, right? Because it's like, imagine how clowned on this record would have been if Wood had been a single. I like Wood because I'm a feminist, but no.
Excuse me.
That was a great
Excuse me.
Matt likes Wood because he can safely say from his perch whatever he likes as he lives in Europe, and the rest of us have to worry about the fire bombs in our houses.
Exactly.
His podcast is consistently teetering on politics.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, like a lot of these, like not all of these songs. Some of the songs are genuinely pretty decent, but like there was definitely a world where they put out singles and got clowned on ad infinitum, so that anticipation is not that incredible, glorious, godlike moment of the Eras tour, biggest arena tour ever, yada, yada, yada.
I feel for, as much as I could feel for the billionaire who always plays victim, Taylor Swift. I feel for her in that when you get the biggest monoculture moment in music in a long time, that there's really nowhere to go but down. I thought an interesting thing, Alex, you said is about hitting the not interested button, because we had such an interesting reaction to our segment last week in that over on Instagram, we had one discussion where it was a lot of Swifties being very mad about what we were saying. But on TikTok, we had a much bigger post. And I went to open the comments and I went, oh no, 300,000 views. This is going to be miserable. And it was people agreeing, mostly saying, like, fuck these Swifties, they behave terribly. Like we were talking about the thing that you can't rate the album on certain sites anymore. And it was mostly saying, like, look at all their toxic behavior. Like this fan base has gotten so toxic. But I think get back to the original video of Taylor, I think like that's the most interesting thing is that an artist can never, no matter even if you're as big as Taylor Swift, the top 3 artists in the world, you don't know how the fans' world reaction is going to be to your record. So all you can do is try to get as many people to hear it, discuss it, and check out if they like it and see if you get the cringe song in your head like Alex has.
What's your favorite track on it, Alex?
I'd probably say Fate of Ophelia is my favorite, but
I actually think it genuinely is a hit song. Like that song is very good. I don't care what anybody says. Like that one is actually really good.
Yeah, that one is also stuck in my head all of the time. And as someone who is enjoying the album, it does. I get what everyone's saying about like you have this massive moment in music and then it's kind of downhill. It kind of feels nice that it's like back to business as usual, just like back to the ordinary release cycle. There isn't this massive thing coming up. We can just kind of sit, relax, enjoy the album, and then see what happens next. It's almost I like it more than if there was supposed to be this next thing coming after it. I'd be kind of exhausted if it was.
Well, in fairness, like I think about the ground zero that is the music release for any artist when it comes to marketing, because it always just feels like whatever you put out, you start at square one. And for Taylor, that is just the ground zero of massive amount of opinions, good and bad and whatever, and sort of like erasure of the last 2 years of what she's built, and then she builds back up on it again. And so it's sort of like a huge example of like what we all deal with in music marketing, where we're just kind of resetting and focusing on this is the music now. Like you said, this is what we're dealing with. It's not about the Eras Tour anymore or any of that other stuff.
And it's always this interesting thing. And Taylor's fascinating because she's so young. But like once you kind of reach that like legacy artist point, the rules start to change in a lot of weird ways.
I mean,
right?
that's actually one of the more interesting things of the first thing she said of like the rule is if you're talking about my release the first week, I'm winning no matter what they're saying, because that's not the rules for a lot of artists. Like if you're on the way up and you're trying to prove yourself, get that best new artist Grammy, and everybody's talking about how stupid your lyrics are, you're fucked.
Yeah, and this is like the interesting thing, right? Is like, you know, Jesse makes fun of me for liking boomer
a variety of reasons.
Just constantly bullying Matt like he's your little brother.
Crushed. Matt and I were out drinking on Friday night. He looked so tired, and I had to hold in like 10 insults of how tired he looked. It was
I was crushed. I was with people from 10 a.m. till like midnight, and when I left you, I was just falling down.
Yeah,
like
you literally looked like we could have blown you over with a feather.
Like I was so exhausted. But what I was trying to say is Jesse makes fun of me for listening to boomer music. Whatever, fine. But like this is the problem you see with legacy artists. Like legacy rock artists cannot get people talking about their new record. And yet they have to put out new music to kind of get like a little bit of conversation so they can actually keep playing festivals and stuff. Taylor realizes this. Like there's probably not a roadmap for the same level of like pop ascendance godhood that she had on 1989, because she's there. You don't go any further up, right? And so now it's just like managing legacy and relevancy. You get more people talking about it, because if more people talk about it, even if they don't like this thing, they're reminded, I like Red, I like Fearless, which is what she was talking about too, right? Is that people now find the record that matches with their life. You know, I feel this way about Thin Lizzy because I'm secretly 70. And
it's also why you can look at artists like All American Rejects, who had so much relevancy this last summer, but were we talking about their music? No, they put out music at the same time. We were talking about
Did they really?
Yeah, they put out music.
I had no idea.
We were talking about the house shows, right? So they built this relevancy, and it was still, and I know their team, and I know what they were trying to do, and they were trying to move that conversation over to their music, and even Jesse didn't know about it. Like that's the thing.
I guarantee if you went on Spotify, I'm not a 1% fan. I'm probably like a 0.1% fan of the All American Rejects.
And you still didn't see it?
I had no idea
they
put out new. I have listened to the All-American Rejects since literally day one. I met those guys as they were recording the record in Williamsburg, and I listened to their song the day Swing Swing the day it came out because I liked the interaction I had with those guys so much, and I've connected with their music throughout their entire career.
That was their whole thing. Is I had a conversation with their team early on, and I think they ended up just doing their marketing internally, but it was like, hey, we have this EP and we want to build momentum around the band, and they really found a footing with this house show thing. And yet still, as a legacy band, it's like, I think they would trade all of that if people were even just shitting on this record, right? Because at least they're talking about the record. And again, to Matt's point, they're not on their way up. People can have conversations and then be reminded, oh yeah, I liked listening, which I probably got a lot of that anyways. But man, I even listened to the record, and it was tough to not focus on the other stuff.
But this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people where there's like this interesting reality about artist careers that nobody says, which is that the max like respected run that you could have is like maybe Madonna had like 20 years of like classic record, 15 years of classic records, really. Like, and it seems to cap at like 15. Like, but what's crazy who has like a more than 15 year run of classic records?
Here's my argument. I think we're actually seeing a shift in that you were able to have this like legacy artist conversation for a lot of years, but like what we're now seeing is like, here's two of the funniest examples. Charlie XCX has her second big career moment with album 7. Alex G, 3 million monthly listeners. I'll get a count on how many records he has out, but like Alex G is a decade into his career and he is nominated for Best New Artist this year. Like the big thing I think we have to remember now is that like that Alex G has 10 studio albums. So, and has been releasing music for at least a decade. And so what we see now is that like, yeah, Best New Artist, like we've always laughed that that's not usually a new artist who wins it. And Alex G has been releasing records for 15 years and he's nominated for Best New Artist. That's his first LP. So that's why I'm saying is like, I don't think that this is the right discussion anymore. We've gotten to a messy era where like when you try to make predictive models now, we're in the mess and we can't see how the mess is going to form into its new blob of shape that is a common trajectory.
No, and that's also true.
So then do you think Taylor Swift made her album worse so that people would talk about it, or is she washed up and that's why people think it's worse?
Taylor Swift's working with Max Martin, who in the book, The Hit Factory, says the thing that everybody knows, which is you have to make the music you want to hear, and that's the only way you make good music. She made a record that she wanted to make and wanted to hear, but it not connecting with the audience like we talked about last week, is that a lot of her fans are not in this phase of life that she's in with the football player. She got the prize, the football player, after dating the aloof, problematic rock star guy.
And, and then there's also, I think, that thing of like the divorce from reality that just kind of inevitably happens. Like when I talk to people who know her or who have worked with her on stuff, it's like, it's like when you read like weird stories about Michael Jackson, like not on a weird, creepy abuse level, but like on like, you're just like in a separate universe, and creating relatable stuff from that separate universe is dramatically harder.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. We're trying to get this to go as far as it can. So please start a conversation with a musician friend by sending them this podcast talking about what we discussed here today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our episodes every Tuesday. If you could rate us on Apple and Spotify, it really helps us. And tune in next week for more. And please, if you'd like more of this, we have a membership feed on YouTube and Apple Podcasts that we'd love for you to join.